CWPA Remote.
I got into water polo I was watching the Olympics in 1992 on TV, and it seemed like a really cool sport just from watching it. And our neighbors had a pool that they let us swim in all the time, and I grabbed a volleyball, which you really can't grip or anything. And I just remember going over there and just playing with it. And it was a lot of fun to play in the water. And my mom noticed that there was a water polo camp at our high school, and I was like, I didn't even know there was a water polo team. And she's like, do you want to sign me up for it? So she signed me up. I went there, and it was fun. I never had been on a swim team before or anything, and just started playing, and obviously was not very good, just trying it out. But just for whatever reason stuck with it, and then got on the high school team, and got on the swim team and just kept playing from there, and developed a lot of friends and teammates through that, and it was cool. So got into that, and about the same time I got into video production, just with camcorders and VCRs, and always thought the process of editing was a lot of fun. Watched a lot of home movies and didn't really like how boring they were, and I just knew how to cut boring parts out and make it more exciting. And then you start to learn a little bit of storytelling, and one thing leads to another, and it's really cool. So that's it was kind of about the same time for both things, and I couldn't explain how they started, but they started, and I just followed them.
Yeah, and just briefly touch on the same thing. It was around the same time. I kind of had the same interest. I don't know if this is shared throughout however many people who have an interest in video, but it's interesting. It was around the same time where, instead of water polo, it's baseball for myself. But around the same time, both just organically kind of just started. So that's it. That's interesting. But then going into Grand Valley State, so you were there kind of at the beginning of when Grand Valley State was on the uprise. So can you just talk a little bit about your time there, and the kinds of things that you went through while you were there, the good times, the bad?
Sure. When I was a senior in high school, I went to Rockford High School, going back a little bit. We had a team that was really good. We went 31-2-1 in my senior year. I lost. The only game we lost in Michigan was the state final to Ann Arbor Huron. And I was a starter on that team, and some of my best friends, were on that team, and we still communicate. But then I wanted to keep playing, so I tried to get into schools that I knew had a team, and I got into Indiana, but the cost ended up being way too much, and my parents rightfully told me, no, you don't like school that much, so you're not going to pay that much to go into debt. And we settled on Grand Valley, and they didn't have a team, and for my freshman sophomore year, we didn't have one, and I just kind of thought that part of my life was over. And then for whatever reason, right before my junior year, I just started thinking about thinking about the possibility of, like, could this work? And you knew a couple guys that played, and you're like, well, if I ask this guy and this guy, and like we maybe get pool time, and didn't have it all figured out, but we're like, well, let's just try. And I remember I just sent out an email with a bunch of people saying, meet at this place, and let's see what we can do. And so I sent out that email, and I showed up thinking nobody would show up. And I got there, and a whole bunch of people I'd never met before and didn't email showed up. Wow. And I was like, who are you people, and how did you get this? And it just got passed around, and there was probably about 8-10 people there. And I was like, I don't know you, but I think we can make a team or something. So started doing some emails, and got invited to a tournament at Michigan as like a B squad, where there was no entry fee. It was just kind of like, hey, can we go and try? And we went, and we got worked in 2 games. But we were able to play, and that 30-meter pool felt like a lake. It was just huge. And, parts of it were like, hey, this is awesome. We're playing college water polo. And parts of it were like, what did we do? Like, why did we, do this? But then it started from there, and then, started emailing with the CWPA and seeing, okay, what does it take to get a team going, and could we join a division? And that was in, I want to say that was the fall of '99. And then we emailed, and we thought, hey, let's see what we could do for the year 2000 fall. And we worked with Grand Valley, got a coach, got money for a coach, got money for different things, and it wasn't much, but it was enough to start. And then found pool time, which was like, practice started, I want to say, at like 11 at night or something like that. It was ridiculous, but
when you get it.
yeah, exactly. And we were in college, so we didn't care, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But yeah, just one thing led to another, and then we got a couple fresh. I remember when I thought we had a legitimate team is when Pat Lohman, who's a good friend of ours, he was playing at Grand Haven, and he was a senior. He decided he was going to go to Grand Valley, and I was like, oh, he's a really good player. I think we've got something if he's going to play with us. The rest of us can kind of go off of him, but he's a good player, and that turned out to be true. And then we got Matt Skavnik to coach, and I remember Scav telling me, he's like, I wasn't interested until you said there was money involved. And when there was money involved, he's like, yeah, I'll take it seriously. I mean, and that really legitimized us. First year program. And so then, from there, 2000, we had a decent run. We, had a couple good games with Notre Dame, probably should have beat them. There was probably my fault on a couple of those, just being the junior captain, senior captain, whatever I was. But then the next year, 2001, was my senior year, my last semester of school, and we had a good team, and we came up short against Dayton in a game where I think we should have. We probably all felt we should have won, but came up short for whatever reason in that semifinal, and and then that was it. But the next few years after that, they got even more talent and won a national title in 2005. So the program just continued to grow, and it was a lot of fun, especially knowing all your friends that stayed with it. A good friend of mine, Josh Arendt, who was still coaching the women's team after we graduated. He's still with the program, and it was good to watch him, be with the team when they won the national title, because he put a ton of work into it, and he's a great coach. So,
and how does it feel, kind of looking back on the success they had, even though it was after you left? You were there for the groundwork of it. What's kind of the feelings that you get when you look at, they still have a program right now, they're doing well. I mean, people know who Grand Valley State are in water polo. So how does it kind of make you feel knowing that you had a part in that?
It feels really good knowing from the start, like that first year, when we were playing teams and we were playing them tough, may not have won, but I remember my parents telling me they were in the stands at Notre Dame, and we're like right there with them, and all the people in the crowd are like, who are these guys? Like, where did they come from? Like all that, and that was fun to kind of be the unknown of, like, yeah, we
playing against Notre Dame too.
Yeah, I mean, we were in a division with Notre Dame, and we were in a division with Miami, which they had a graduate transfer, I guess, who was doing his master's degree at Miami, and his name was Jeremy Brown. And my senior year of high school, we actually went to a camp at UCLA, and Jeremy Brown was there as a UCLA varsity player. And then to play against him as a graduate, it was kind of like cool. And I mean, that guy's a stud, and he was a beast. And I remember like having to guard him at that camp, just thinking, okay, this is ridiculous. I have no shot against this guy. But then, in a game, it's like, I still feel that way, but let's, now it really counts. Let's see what I can do. So, Yeah, I mean, it feels really good. It felt really good. Kept talking to Josh in 2005 when they were at the national title. I think it was in New York, and I said, keep me updated, and he called me on Saturday night and was like, yeah, we won. We're going to be in the finals against Michigan State, which that's really cool because Michigan State helped us get going. Both Michigan and Michigan State were very good at helping us get going as a program. And we played them several times and had friends that we were either teammates with or, played. And so it was kind of just that, community starting. And then we're in a national title game against them. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. But I know that I had just moved to Denver to be with my fiance, who's now my wife. And I had just been interviewing for the Rockies job. And so like we had been given tickets to the Broncos game that Sunday. And as we were driving to the Broncos game, I knew that Grand Valley was in the title game. I knew we were going to go have a good time at the Broncos game. And I knew I would hear on Monday if I got the job with the Rockies. And I was like, well, this is a very cool time. So as we're driving the Broncos game, I hear from Josh. He calls and he just very matter-of-factly was like, hey, we won. And I was like, really? I'm like, that's very cool. Like we're national champions. Yeah. And, like I couldn't stop smiling the next day or the whole day. And then, the next day I got offered the Rockies job and I was like, this is a really cool thing, So, I'll never forget that.
That's awesome. And now that was actually the perfect segue. You can tell you're a video guy. So on to your professional career after water polo. So you obviously currently work for the Colorado Rockies. You started out, correct me if I'm wrong, with Root Sports, Rocky Mountain, and before you went to Colorado Rockies. Just can you talk a little bit about the journey? You don't always get to where you want to be immediately. And there's always that path that you have to go on. So can you just kind of explain a little bit about your journey along that path?
Yeah. So I only freelanced at Root Sports, which is out AT&T. I've never worked there full time, and that was after I started at the Rockies. So, but my path to the Rockies, basically when water polo got done my senior year and I was coaching at a high school in Hudsonville, a girls team, I kind of felt like I was not doing what I wanted to do in my career. I went to Grand Valley as a film and video student, and I wanted to be a video editor. So as some things happened in my life where I started, questioning that, and I was, pretty untethered at the time. So I decided I was going to leave Michigan and live in Los Angeles, and didn't have a job and didn't have a place to live or anything. I was just going to grab all my stuff, get in a car and go. So on the way, I found a roommate, found a place to live. About a month later, after being there, got a job as a driver for a promotions production company. And that's all I needed. I was like, I could prove it from here. So, then within 8 months, 9 months, I became an editor and doing promos on things for, like Warner Brothers was one of our big, clients. So I'd work on shows like the OC and, George Lopez show and all those things and, edit some projects for that and some movie trailers and different things for, different companies. And, then, started dating my wife, and she was in Colorado. And, so we were doing long distance. After a while I proposed, and, we had the conversation of where we're going to live. So she won. And so I had to move to Colorado. And it kind of stung because I was like, well, I just built this start of a career that was pretty cool and I thought was going places. But I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to work in video again. Colorado's not necessarily a place for that. And I was like, well, let's step out in faith again and see what happens. And I sent my demo reel to Fox Sports, Rocky Mountain, which became Root, which became AT&T, and the Rockies and the Broncos. And when I arrived, I'm unpacking my car. I get a call, and I don't recognize there was no name on it at the time. It was just a 303 number. And I knew that was Denver's area code. And I said, who knows I'm here? I just pulled up. There's no way nobody knows I'm here. And it was Kent Krosbakken, who is my boss now. And he said, we just received your demo reel. And I just want you to know a job opened up. Would you like to apply for it? And I was like, that's amazing. And I was like, you're in luck. I'm in town. I just moved, and I mean, I fell to my knees because kind of at that moment, like I knew it was my dream job and I knew I had it. Like I can't explain it. I'm not trying to be cocky. I just knew I had it, so, about a month later, and Grand Valley's got a really good team at the time. This whole thing is going on and I'm kind of paying attention to that, but, I was offered the job, and so that's kind of my whole trajectory of how I got to Colorado, and I've been there for almost 15 years since.
Now, what is something like kind of like your bragging moment, if you had one? Like either, just a favorite moment that you had, or kind of a cool moment that might not be your favorite, but it's kind of cool to tell somebody about, just from your experiences that you've had so far.
Oh, there's a lot of good ones. I mean, on the water polo side, like last year, Ryan Stillborg, who's a former player and now is an AT&T personality, he was in the booth and we were talking about stuff, and I mentioned that I used to play water polo, and he went to UC Santa Barbara. And it's really cool. One of the things I loved about being in LA or California, like when you're from Michigan, you say you play water polo and everybody thinks, what's wrong with you? You don't want to play football? And it's like, that's not that at all, but whatever. When you're from California, everybody's like, whoa, you play water polo? Like they know what it is.
Right.
So we were talking, I don't remember how I mentioned it, but I was like, yeah, I play water polo. And he's like, oh, wow, you did all those drills like with your hands and the jugs above it. And it's like, yeah, we did those, and it was just really cool to have him, just be like, whoa, man, that's tough. But most of the bragging moments that I had unrelated to water polo, just related to my job, come from 2007 and the World Series run, because that was just such a cool thing to be a part of, even 13 years later. And just it was the coolest time of my life. I mean, my wife was pregnant with our first child at the time, and just that 13-inning wild card tiebreaker game. We say it all the time. If it was played in New York or on the East Coast, it would have been considered the greatest game in the history of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such an amazing 2 weeks that it was so improbable that led up to that, and then an amazing 3 weeks afterwards, and just those 22 days, I wish I could live them over, because it was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. And the night we clinched the pennant, baseball is so superstitious. Water polo is not as superstitious. Like I think we're too laid back. Like we show up in sandals, show up with our towel and our suit, like the suit's in the towel, and you just kind of like, I don't even need to go in and change. I'll just change right here and I'll jump in. Like it's, some guys are a little superstitious, but baseball, like you don't talk about the next level. You don't talk about anything else. So like, we didn't prepare anything for National League champions, like no graphics or anything, until we were ready to clinch, because it's like we just were on such a run. And it was like, don't talk about it. Don't do anything. So before the game, I was there like an hour, and I was like, are we doing anything? Are we putting anything on the board that says we've won, And even then it was kind of like, don't talk about it. And I was like, okay, well, we got to have something. So then I make this graphic, I make some sweeps, and then like I show my boss, and he's kind of in, you can tell he's like, that's awesome, but I don't want to say, oh, sweet. Yeah, we're going to use this tonight. And yeah, let's go. He's just like, that's awesome. And and it was at the time before direct deposit and all that. So, well, I don't know, but he just drops my paycheck on the desk because it was the 15th. And I was like, that's a moment right there. That is a huge moment. Like, not only are we going to go to the World Series tonight, because I was like, we're going to clinch the pennant. I just made some things that are going to be on broadcast, and it's going to be, you know, like we're going to do this. And I got paid to do it, you know? And like, he just dropped the paycheck on there. And I was just like, how did I get here? This is crazy. Awesome. Like, and it's just one of those moments where you're like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And so that's my bragging moment.
And you know what? That's bringing back some unkind memories for me. I'm a Phillies fan who
I kind of figured you were.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in all fairness, that was our first. The Mets didn't make it. That's all I cared about that year. That's all I cared about. But no, that was a great. I remember watching that run completely through. I'm a big baseball fan, so I'll watch the playoffs running through regardless of who's in it. It hurt a little more that they weren't, but Rockies swept everybody that they met until you got to the World Series. That was a great year to watch.
Yeah.
And you're right. There's something about like a stretch like that where everything's just lining up, and you're like, wow, I can't believe it. And you're a part of it, and you get to be paid to be a part of it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, the Phillies were on such a run that I had no idea that they were on that run because I was so paying attention to what we did that I don't even think it occurred to me until the next day after we beat the Padres. I thought in my mind we were playing the Mets. Like, I legitimately thought that I had no idea what was going on with everything else. And I was like, what? The Phillies, what happened here? And I know there were probably conversations of like, well, if we win, we go to Philadelphia. But like,
yeah,
it
was wild. But
yeah,
still, you guys got the better hand of us then. That's fine. That's fine. But
that Philly series was a lot of fun too, and it was
my first time in my life seeing the Phillies in the playoffs, so it just hurt a little bit for me.
Well, and in 2008 they won the World Series, and in 2009 they beat us in that playoff game in 2009. So
yeah, it all comes around. It's a big circle in baseball. We get revenge. But just rounding off real quick, Jeff, just do you have any good advice that you can pass along to somebody who's trying to, you know, start a club at their school? What are just a couple things that you would preach to them to practice in order to have a successful program, even for after they graduate?
Well, I'm more of an introvert, and I like to try to solve problems on my own. And I would say that the best advice I could probably give is that how it gets done is people. You probably need more people than you think, and you need to make good contacts. And when you state the problems, I didn't even know I was doing this at the time, but like when you put the problem out there of like, hey, we need pool time, we need this. These are the problems. How do we solve them? A lot of people have ideas, and they can help you get them solved. And it's just really nice when you have people. When you try to do it all yourself, it's too much heavy lifting. But like if you're like, what do we need to get this done? Okay, well, we need a faculty member to sign off. Okay, well, I know somebody who I think she would sign off on this. Cool. Take that, get that problem done. We need pool time. What about this place? I lifeguard here. I'm sure that, you know, nothing's going on this time. Okay, let's do that. You know, and just one thing leads to another, and you need people. And you put the problems out there. If you trust the level of problem solving skills with everybody, it gets solved. I mean, even down to road trips. They're like, all right, we need a place to stay, and we don't have a lot of money for a hotel. Okay, well, I'm friends with this person on this campus, and I can see, you know, and next thing you know, you've got a place to stay, and saves you a couple of hotel rooms. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say is that as much as I hate to admit it, people are good people, and building trust, building relationships, is how you get it done.
All right. On that note, Jeff Donehoo, thank you very much from the Colorado Rockies. Thank you very much for joining us. And as always, we love to see Grand Valley State doing well, and it's awesome to get to talk to you, one of the founding players and founding influencers of that team. So thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike. Keep up the good work. I love to see college water polo. I love going to see CU, CSU play locally around here. So, it's a good time, and keep up the good work. And to all the water polo players, keep swimming, keep working hard.